Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 10 of the BamaPreps Podcast. My name is Vlad your host, and I'm joined by Mason Colmer. And Mason, what an amazing week of SUPER7 games we have as they just finished up. We'll start with 7A and all these games, but 3.5 months of just amazing football finally over, and we get to talk about it here.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it was an enjoyable SUPER7. Really lived up to the hype and all the build. It was a really great way to put a great finish on the season.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we're going to get started with this 7A game, but just as a synopsis of the whole season, you know, I really feel like we had the best teams in this year's SUPER7, and it showed in all the games that were played. We had so many close games and so many good matchups this year. And we're going to start with 7A. We're going to start Central Phoenix City beats Thompson 21-19 in an absolutely amazing game. Had a lot of turnovers. Had a lot of, teeter-tottering of the win percentage. And like we mentioned, Phoenix City gets it done 21-19. And I just have to mention, I'm looking at the numbers in front of me right now between the rushes and the yards of both teams. Thompson had 28 rushes for 47 yards. Central Phoenix City, 39 rushes for 222 total yards. Tristan Williams runs for 125 and 2 touchdowns. Zach Simmons runs for 17 and 87 yards, no touchdowns. But man, the impact was felt with that Central Phoenix rushing attack, and it really propelled them to the state championship.
Yeah, something we talked about immediately. Early on in the game, Thompson was there, but eventually the Central line settled down, and when we say they dominated up front, they dominated all game. You win football games in the trenches, and Central won this game in the trenches, both on offense and defense. Here's a fun fact for you. Trent Seaborn, 6 rushing attempts, negative 22 yards. You talk about creating pressure for that Central defense. They did it on that young Trent Seaborn.
And Thompson, they just could not get at Andrew Alford all game. The offensive line and defensive line for Phoenix City, their presence was felt, and in my opinion, that was a difference in this game. You know, we talked all season long about athlete to athlete, player to player coming up, and, you know, you match Thompson's speed and athleticism with Central's. I think one thing that we forgot to factor out there was this line play. And Thompson, as we've noticed all season, has been a little bit smaller on their offensive line. They graduated a ton of seniors last season. This was a new group that had to come together and do what they did. But from these numbers and what I saw during the game, it really looked like they had a tough time and struggled against this Phoenix City defensive line. And on the other side, Thompson doesn't have Peter Woods anymore, which was a big factor in the past 4 years of state title games for them. Just absolutely a wrecking force. There wasn't that guy on the Thompson defense, at least in the front 7 this season, that was able to make that impact, and I think that's what the difference was here. But let's not forget Andrew Alford. He did throw a few interceptions to, I believe both of them were to Anquan Fagans, but when the time came, he got it to his playmaker, his star receiver, Cam Coleman, who caught 5 for 143 and 1 touchdown, and his 1 touchdown was an absolute burner. Takes a slant route over 50 yards, and what looked to be the icer in that one.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Coleman, we always say it, you get the ball in the hands of playmakers. They put the game. At the time, it didn't look like it was going to be the dagger, but that slant ended up being the dagger. I mean, you watch it on TV, you see him catch the slant, and you're like, eventually.
He outran an Auburn commit and a 5-star DB.
And you thought they were going to catch him, but the ability to control his feet down that sideline, I've never seen a man get so skinny down the sideline. Looked like Chris Davis taking it back to the house.
Here we go.
But he took it all the way to the end zone. Amazing play. Ended up being the dagger. And I mean, when you're one of, if not the best player in the state, what a formal way to go out.
Exactly, yeah. And Coleman did win game MVP, deservedly so. But there's also a case to be made there for Tristan Williams, who had the 2 touchdowns and just chipped away at the Thompson. But Thompson didn't go away. Let's not forget that. Thompson did not go away in this game and scored a touchdown. Colvin Landrieu, who had 3 catches, 2 of them were touchdowns, 58 yards on the day. He was Seaborn's favorite target outside of checking it down to A.J. Green, who had 7 catches in this game for 26 yards. The passing game for Thompson was not what we have seen all season long, and honestly, both touchdowns to Landrieu were jump ball. One of them is triple covered in the end zone, and he just came down with it. And in my opinion, I think this game was a little bit close. It was a little bit less closer than what the score showed. Central had 3 fumbles. 2 of them were on punts, and their punt return, when I was watching these punts, John Allen McGuire would punt. It'd be straight down into the returner's hands, and he just could not field them correctly. 2 fumbles, and I believe they got 10 points off of that. They got a McGuire field goal, and they got a Landrew touchdown on those 2 turnovers. And I think if you take those plays out of the game, I think Central goes down and scores a few other times. But Thompson gets a touchdown to Landrew, cuts the lead to 21-19. They attempt a 2-point conversion, don't get it. They actually get the ball back, drive down the field. McGuire kicks a field goal, misses it, and that ended up being the game loser for Thompson. So Phoenix City gets their first state title since 2018. Nobody's beat Thompson since this team. And they do it here back on the mountaintop. Do you have any final thoughts from this 7A game?
Look, all year we've tried to find a team that could beat Thompson. We didn't think Clay Chalkville could do it. They didn't. Yeah. They did it. We looked at each other and said, if anyone's going to knock Thompson off their pedestal, it's going to be Central Phoenix City. Yeah. This is the year. They looked bigger. It proved to play a great factor in this game. Their size definitely was a massive advantage, able to just drive the ball and run it down the throat at the end of the game. A huge first down by Alford. Forces Freeman to burn all the timeouts. And then a big, I think it was probably like a 15-yard run. He probably, if he wanted to, take it all the way to the house. Yep. Slides down, they kneel it out, win the game. But, I mean, just a great way to end for a great season. We're seeing one of the best receivers in Alabama high school history go out in Cam Coleman, and I can't wait to see what he does at the next level.
All right, Avi.
Well, I wasn't gonna say anything. Look, until the dotted line sign, you don't know these days.
I completely agree. But I can't say how impressed I am with this Phoenix City team. And there's a lot of people on that team that is like, BamaPreps, man, you doubted us all year. You're always picking Thompson. You're always going against us. And in my, I've learned a lot with picking teams this season. And I've learned that anything can happen. There's been so many times this season I'm like, okay, that's a sure bet that this team's going to win or this team's going to lose. But, man, just from what I saw this season and from what I saw Phoenix City do, this is one of the best teams the state's ever seen. And I can say that pretty confidently. And there's some other teams this year that I can say that confidently about. But this team, for sure, super impressive. And my biggest takeaway from this is just the line play. On both sides of the football for Phoenix City, they had some road gravers on that offensive line that was able to move the ball and get over 200 yards total rushing. When's the last time you've seen somebody do that against Thompson? You saw Mbakwe do what he did, but that is one player, and that is him creating something out of nothing most of the time against Thompson. This was domination by this Central Phoenix City offensive front and then defensive front with just the pressure that they created on Seaborn. I'd be on the sideline, I'd see Seaborn running for his life on half of these plays. And that prevented them from getting a passing game. They only had 3 points at halftime. It was a 14-13 game, and Seaborn had to will a few of these touchdowns into the end zone. They eventually did get it with Landrew, but just can't say enough about how impressed I am. And honestly, it's something that I did not expect. All season long, I've had other people tell me about just how good this offensive front, defensive front, how big they are. And we probably should have known because we saw it at the Auburn game. We saw how big those guys were. But that's it for 7A. Congratulations to Coach Patrick Nix. Congratulations to Cam, to Alford, and to everybody who made that season so special. It was a joy to cover them all season long. But let's get to the 6A matchup, which probably is game of the year. I was at this game. Mason, you were also at this game. You were on the Saraland side, and I was on the Chalkville sideline covering this game. So we had a couple different angles. And in the end, Clay Chalkville dethrones Saraland, ends their 29-game winning streak? Is it 20? Yeah, it's like a 29-game winning streak.
No, it's not 29. They lost to Theodore last year, late regular season. Yeah.
20-something game winning streak for Saraland. All season long, offense has been unstoppable. We picked them to win, picked them to win, picked them to win. They keep doing it. But we knew that this Chalkville matchup was going to be trouble for them because we know how good this offensive and defensive front are. And I took all that into consideration and still picked Saraland because of the weapons they had on offense. And boy, did they start out strong. Literally on the first possession for Saraland, absolute bomb.
First play of the offense being out there. Absolute bomb after the defense gets a massive stop to open the game for Clay. Deep ball to Ryan Williams. You're like
63 yards like that.
We're like, all right, great. Saraland's back. Clay responds. Amazing drive. Jalen Mbakwe starts doing what he's doing. And this is when I start realizing in the stands, man, Saraland is getting blown off the ball. And when you look out there, it's the same D lineman, Big Antonio Coleman. Yeah, he's a force to be reckoned with up there, but he was getting tired late.
They did not rotate.
And they ran right up the middle when he was tired. Then Saraland offense gets back out there. Didn't take much longer for Ryan Williams to take it to the house, score, and I'm like, man, oh man, are we in for a shootout this time? And then Mbakwe, once again, does what he does best, takes him down the field, scores a touchdown. Oh, and guess who scores next for Saraland?
Ryan Williams.
But this time, only 2 yards. Little disappointing. A little disappointing right there. But
hey, 7-7. It doesn't matter the yards before.
To me, the most key drive of this whole game and the most game-defining drive, 40 seconds left in the second half. Jalen Mbakwe gets out there, and he just makes some plays. A little deep ball.
You mean in the first half?
In the first half, to end the first half. That, to me, was the most key drive of the game. Because if they come out of the half, and what we know happened coming out of the half happens, you're down 14. It's really hard for the way that Clay offense.
We've talked all season, 14 points against Saraland is almost insurmountable.
And Clay's offense is not built to do that, but they found a way here. He connects with Mario Craver deep, 40 yards, touchdown. They tie it up headed into half. Just, massive by him.
Yeah, 21-21 going into the half. And we know Saraland's getting the ball, and this game really started to feel like a whoever has the ball last is going to win type of game because both offenses couldn't be stopped. And coming out of half, okay, let me preface this. So I was on the Clay sideline for this game, and I saw their kicker kick it to Ryan Williams, and I saw Coach Gilmer come up to him and goes, kick it anywhere but to number one. And where does he kick it coming out of halftime? Straight to number one, straight to Ryan Williams. 86 yards, right out of the break, kickoff return touchdown, and the Clay sideline is depleted. There, you could hear a pin drop on the sideline, and to their credit, Jalen Mbakwe comes right back and then runs it down their throat for a touchdown, and then the fourth quarter hit, and nothing happened. Punt, punt, punt. And then you have a fumble where Paramore rips it out of Mbakwe's hand. And then in the end, with 6 minutes and 43 seconds left, Antoine Ellison kicks a field goal, puts Clay up by 3. Now Saraland's got to go make a drive with 2 minutes left. And my whole time thinking is, that is way too much time for that Saraland offense. And they did what they had to do. They drive down to the field to the 10-yard line. And with about 14 seconds left, do you call a timeout? They let the clock go down to 5 seconds, call a timeout, go to the sideline, and I think the entire stadium is thinking, okay, kick a field goal, tie this thing, take it to overtime, let Ryan Williams win you the game. But who comes out? The offense. Saraland, with 5 seconds left in the game. They call a pass play, looking to hit the middle of the field. Lacey sees nothing open, runs it, gets to the 2-yard line, and gets stopped by DJ Barber and another Clay Chalkville Cougar. Clay wins the 6A state title. What a finish. And this is a finish that we have to talk about because do you kick the field goal there? It is on a hash. It is off to the side. And Saraland's kicker actually missed one earlier in the game from about that same distance. Granted, it was on the other hash, the right hash, but he missed it pretty bad. Coach Kelly trusts his offense, goes out there, call it hubris, call it, I don't know what you call it. What do you call there? With 5 seconds left in the game, the whole state thinks you're kicking a field goal. Do you kick it right there?
With 5 seconds left, you have to kick the field goal. I think it gives your best team in the long run to win the game. But to me, if you're going to go for it on 4th and goal, you don't let that clock run down to 5 seconds and try to shock the world and come up with this play. If you call it with 14 seconds, KJ gets down. That was probably, I think when they ruled him down, the clock finally ticked down to 0.
Oh, yeah, the play took 5 seconds for sure.
It would have been probably 8 seconds left on the clock. You get up there real quick, spike the ball. You have a one-on-one jump ball or something. Try to create something real quick. If it doesn't work, it's a little chip shot for the kicker. Hopefully he can make them. He's kicked a lot of PATs this year for the offense, so he should be able to make that. And to me, it just comes down to clock management. But there's a stat in this game. I want to ignore the yards and stuff for a second. Something Clay did that was amazing was they kept that Saraland offense off the field.
Yes.
In the second half.
Yes.
Time of possession for Clay Chalkville, 28 minutes and 23 seconds. Time of possession for Saraland, only 19 minutes and 37 seconds. It's something we've seen all year. I thought the only way you could beat them was keeping that Saraland offense off the field and having to match them. And, I mean, Clay, there's a way to beat Saraland. They found a way. They laid down the blueprint for future teams on beating them. I mean, what a just dominance up front on the offensive side of the ball for Clay Chalkville.
Yeah, let's get into these stats here. Jalen Mbakwe, 26 attempts, 130 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was their guy this all season long. They put him at quarterback. They ran him 25 times every game. They let him throw around a little bit, but he was the difference in this game. That is one of the greatest performances I've seen in state title history. He's going to go down as one of the greatest players in Alabama high school history. Let's think about this season that Chalkville had. 15-0. They beat Thompson. 14-0. I apologize. They had a game schedule.
Was it?
Took it off their
what
schedule.
game was it?
It was against Phoenix City.
Phoenix City was that like? Year. Was it the Thompson game?
I believe they had a schedule conflict. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 14-0 this season. They beat Thompson. They beat Parker. They beat Oxford. They beat Mountain Brook, and they beat the Saraland Spartans, the unbeatable Saraland Spartans. They knocked them out. This is one of the greatest seasons in Alabama high school history. Osley had 10 for 34, and top receiver was Mario Craver. They only threw it to anybody else one time. 6 receptions, 142 yards, and a touchdown for Craver. And when I was rewatching this touchdown catch, it looked like number 15 for Saraland must have gotten a cramp or pulled something because he was stride for stride with Craver, and then Craver just has it in the end zone, and the dude's sitting there limping.
So something I will point out, not trying to throw shade towards a player, at the Hillcrest Tuscaloosa game, they've done the same thing. Hillcrest picked on the safety in that situation because Hillcrest is a team you want to run commit pretty much against the way they run.
Yeah.
So finally, I'm in the stands. I'm like, man, a little tight end pop right here would go big. And Saraland ran one high safety. And when they ran one high safety,
O.C. Comer.
It felt like Clay Chalkville took full advantage of it. They called him with one safety back there, one-on-one with one of the fastest guys in the state.
Yep.
And I don't care who you put back there. I'm taking my money with Mario Craver. And Jalen Mbakwe just delivered a beautiful ball.
Yeah.
And great play. I don't think that DB could have done much better coverage it. And, he called a cramp. But later on in the game, he did a great job covering them, too, and still was getting beat.
Yeah, I agree. And let's look on the Saraland side. KJ Lacey goes 27 for 38, 389 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of the best passing performances we've seen in a SUPER7 game overall. But this running game did not get going for Saraland. Sante McWilliams, their leading back all season long, only had 8 carries for 27 yards. Williams had the 1 touchdown on the Wildcat play, but he ends up with only 4 carries, 4 yards, and a touchdown. Lacey, who got sacked a little bit, which really ran down his total, he had 6 attempts for only 2 yards. Now that's 2 net yards, not gross. If it was gross yards, I'm sure he'd have a little bit more. But the moral of the story is this Chalkville defense, at least on the running side, came to play and they shut him down. But on the receiving side, Ryan Williams did what he had to do. 11 receptions, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns. And, man, what a way to end our 6A season. This was the matchup we all saw coming. This is all what we thought was going to happen, and it happened, and we were in for an absolute treat. And what a way to end 6A. Now, let's jump down to 5A, where we saw Gulf Shores play Ramsey, and pretty much the whole state here was picking Ramsey. Except for our boy Wu Gang, he's gonna pick those.
Wu Gang a little biased. We can't keep disrespecting them Mobile boys. Wu Gang. When that Birmingham bias run heavy, Wu Gang, we just gonna pull up and be like, look at Clay Chalkville, man.
So let's start with this game. And Gulf Shores scored all 21 of their points. They went 21-14 over Ramsey. They scored all 21 in the first quarter of this game. It was 21-0 going into the second quarter. Ronnie Worrell touchdown, Colin Wilson touchdown, and then another huge Ronnie Worrell touchdown. And that made this game 21-0. It looked like Gulf Shores was going to run away with this one. But Ramsey claws into this game. They get 6 points off of a Christian Stinson receiving pass from Trey Washington. They ran a little Philly special. And then Ashton Ashford runs it in very late into the game. Only a minute 28 left to go in the ball game. They run it in, and that's a minute and 28 into the fourth quarter. So they had time to score, and this Ramsey offense just looked off kilter all game long. There were some dudes on that Gulf Shores team, and this is a game that I had a pretty good view of watching, but I do admit I did not watch a little bit of the third quarter, I believe.
I kind of disappeared once it was 21-0. I was kind of like, oh, I guess it's not going to happen. But where are you getting your stats at right now? Because my stats have Cameron Keenan with negative 290 yards, and I do not believe that is an accurate stat.
Oh my goodness, it is.
Especially for 5 attempts, negative 290 yards, that would be like going...
Must have gotten sacked a lot.
I just don't... That doesn't make sense. And only 5 passing yards for Ramsey the whole game?
Yeah, that's not true. Okay, these stats got to be off. But in all, Gulf Shores wins the 5A state title game, and really good for them. I saw at the end of the game, it looked like Alvin Briggs didn't want to shake Coach Hudspeth's hand.
Well, we all kind of know why, but we're not going to... I mean, they proved everybody wrong. Yeah. Ronnie Royal had the greatest interception I've ever seen in my life.
Goodness, yes. One hand palms this football out of the air.
Brings it in. He never puts 2 hands on the ball, which was the most amazing thing. I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah, and Judd Harris only attempted 10 passes all game, but when you got Ronnie Royal and Colin Wilson back there, Royal goes 22 for 188, 2 touchdowns. Colin Wilson 16 for 89 and a touchdown. This Gulf Shores rushing attack is what drained this clock and won this game for them. And 5A state champs. Man.
Hey, it's a party at the beach, baby.
I guess so. All right, we'll jump down to 4A now. This pod's probably going to be a little bit shorter since all we're doing is recapping this game. We had Catholic Montgomery going up against Cherokee County. And for the first quarter, we had no score. Second quarter, J.J. Williams gets a 3-yard touchdown pass from Caleb McCreary. Finally, some points late in this first half. And then in the second half, it became the Caleb McCreary show. He had a 66-yard touchdown rush, a 5-yard touchdown rush, and a 29-yard touchdown rush. Josh Griffin also got into the action with a 19-yard touchdown. And they end up winning this 35-0 over Cherokee County. And really, Carson Tittle, who is Cherokee County's quarterback, was playing with, I believe, a torn ACL. I believe he was playing on that. That's what the announcers kept saying all game. And the dude tore it earlier this season. I'm like, how are you doing that? But they got stifled offensively. And it was the same story as last year with Andalusia. They actually scored a touchdown against Andalusia, but 2 state title appearances for Cherokee County, only 7 points to show for it. Cornejo, 26 for 102. He got his. Tay Diamond got him some rushing, but when it came down to it, Caleb McCreary in his last game as a high school football player only threw the ball 14 times, 60 yards, but that is not what mattered. He had 22 attempts for 197 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. What a way to go out for this for this Montgomery Catholic team, and they win the 4A state title. What are your thoughts on this one?
Look, all year we've talked about how dominant this Montgomery Catholic defense is. They looked a little lackluster there at the beginning of the playoffs, letting some teams we weren't expecting to put up points against them. But that BT Washington game, they locked in. They locked in. In this game, they locked in. When's the last time a team didn't have a single passing yard game? I mean, a single passing yard. And don't get me wrong, they only attempted it 5 times. When your quarterback's playing on a torn ACL, there's not a lot you can...
They had to put Corneo back there.
There's not a lot you can do. It sucks. It seems like injuries really affected Cherokee County in this game. Yeah. But, I mean, this Montgomery Catholic defense, one of the best defenses we've ever seen, will go down as one of the best defenses. A redemption for Caleb McCreary. Freshman year leads them to state. Senior year, finally wins the blue mat, brings it home. What a win.
Yeah, and congratulations to Coach Kirk Johnson and this Catholic Montgomery team. They've been waiting on this one for a while, and they finally get the job done. Let's jump to 3A.
Gosh, what a lot of talent went through there.
Yeah, there was. And let's jump to this 3A game, which had a lot of scoring, a lot of action, and Mobile Christian ends up winning the state title over Madison Academy 55-28. And, man, when I tell you that this was the Damari Gadsden show, I mean it. I'm sorry, Damian Gadsden. He had 20 attempts, 15 completions, 298 yards, and 5 passing touchdowns, added on by Jordan Woolard, P.J. Brown, and Jason Todd touchdown. They spread the ball around and end up with 8 touchdowns in this ball game. And, man, what a performance. Aaron Rodgers catches 5 passes for 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. Woolard gets him another one. Kelly gets him one, and P.J. Brown gets him one, and an absolute offensive explosion. It seemed like whatever Madison Academy did, they did not have enough to slow down this Mobile Christian team. And we got to remember, going into halftime, this game was only 21-14, and it was a second-half offensive explosion. On the other side for Madison Academy, credit where credit is due, Ken Cherry proved that he was one of the best backs in the state. 24 carries, 127 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jake Poldiak, who threw 3 interceptions in this game, which first half interceptions, mind you.
Which would really hurt this team.
Yeah, we thought what the difference going to be. They could have been leading going into halftime. They had the ball deep in Mobile Christian territory, and there was opportunities for them to score maybe 28-21, 21-21 going into halftime, but it didn't happen. Poldiak gets 342 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Jackson Reese catches a touchdown, and Ken Cherry, who had 5 receptions for 122 yards, over 200 all-purpose yards for Cherry in this game. He did whatever he could to will this team, but at the end it wasn't enough. Gadsden gets MVP, and Mobile Christian goes 15-0 and wins the state championship game. You had picked Mobile Christian, and I had picked Madison Academy in this one, and looks like you were right. That offense did everything it needed to do.
Yeah, Mobile Christian to me was just the better team, even on paper to me. It's just, to me, the Madison Academy, they proved in this game they're maybe not as one-dimensional, but I felt like they relied on Ken Cherry. And it's proof they did. And Mobile Christian, just turnovers ended up being a big factor in it. And the inability for Madison Academy to finish drives late. They got to 4th down a lot in Mobile Christian territory in the second half and just weren't able to finish, and it really cost that team.
Yep, it did. You want to talk about as close to a perfect passer rating as you're going to get. I don't have the number here, but Gaston, man, he's pretty close. And they end up winning the 3A state title game. Let's jump to 2A, and let's jump to this absolute dynasty that Fife has been cultivating over the decade. And here's a stat for you. This stat's going to seem pretty crazy. They have 7 state championships in the past 10 years. You want to know how many losses they have in that span? 6. They have 7. They have more state championships than they have losses. That is a crazy number for Coach Benefield and this Fife Red Devil group. And who else but Logan Anderson to lead the way over the Reeltown Rebels. He goes 34 attempts for 256 yards and 4 touchdowns. Ryder Gibson also gets into the action. 6 attempts for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. And they only passed the ball 1 time in this game. Of course it was incomplete, because Fife doesn't pass the ball. They run the football.
Run the ball, son.
And I'll admit, in the first quarter it was only 14-12. Tay Martin and Arthur Woods both get rushing touchdowns for this Reeltown group, and it looks like for them, they were in this game. But then Fife gets 2 touchdowns going into halftime, and then it was pretty even from there on out. But it's just an overwhelming attack by this Red Devil group, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due. Reeltown found a way to run and pass his ball. Arthur Woods had 15 attempts for 94 yards and a touchdown. Traylon Roberts had 15, 72 and a touchdown. Tay Martin had 7 for 57 and a touchdown. Jake Hornsby, their quarterback, 22 attempts for 17 yards, touchdown. For 149 yards. Tay Martin gets one through the air, but at the end of the day, it was Fife, and if they don't get any more, which there's a good chance they do, but if they don't get any more, this, in my opinion, is the greatest dynasty in Alabama high school football history. What do you think about this one?
Look, Fife, dominant. They did what they did best, run the ball. It's just amazing to watch, a dynasty be born in just the consistent way to constantly
get
there.
It's 10 years old now.
It's 10 years old, but
it's about to start playing youth ball.
It's about to head up to the big boys now.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but no, just the way they continuously find ways to keep this level of excellence up is just a tribute to the coaching job down there in Fife. It's like they just enjoy it. They never get sick of it, and they run the ball. I mean, those players, something we noticed when we were watching it before the Sutherland game was they looked dirty, but they were exhausted. They played both ways, and they gave everything they have because it means so much to them to keep that standard of Fife winning those state titles up.
And it's like, even when Fife got moved to 3A, I believe they won a state title. Let me pull it up here. Your internet's actually going nice for me. So yeah, they get moved up to 3A in 2020. They go 15-0. and then they get moved back down to 22, and they've won the last two in absolute dominant fashion. Do you move this team up to 4A? Like, is that what it's going to take?
I'm going to be honest. I think once they get to 4A, maybe not out of the North, but once you
if
made
they're
it...
4A North, they're making it to the state title game.
Yeah, and if they would be like a Cherokee County of 4A pretty much. They would just take the role of Cherokee County. I think that would be their toughest opponent. I think they might end up actually in the same region if they got sent up to 4A. But there's no way they jump 2 classifications. I think we would be years down the road before we talk about 5 going up to 4A.
They need to get a few more people in there.
I think the Montgomery Catholic defense would stop a 5 Red Devils offense.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's an off-season discussion. I think Mobile Christian
could
give them a shot.
Yeah.
St. James?
St. James, I don't know. They're losing their quarterback, so we'll see. I mean, you got to retool and replace. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. But man, yes, what a season for 5. Once again, 14-1. I'm sorry, they did lose week 1.
Yeah, they played Geraldine.
Yeah, well, Geraldine made it to the semis.
Geraldine was a great team. I mean, if Ken Cherry wasn't Ken Cherry, then they would have won.
Let's jump to 1A. Coosa Christian versus defending champs Leroy. Leroy ends up winning 28-21, and Coosa Christian felt like maybe controlled this game. They scored the first 2 touchdowns, but Leroy just came back, took care of business. Jacaven Collins had 2 touchdowns. Braden Hubner, starting quarterback, did what he had to do. Also threw for a touchdown to Jaquan Scott. And what a story for these Leroy Bears to win the state title. And Cannon Wilson had 2 touchdowns for Coosa Christian. John David Justice did what he had to do in the passing game. They didn't really throw it all too much, though. But at the end of the day, it is back-to-back championships for these Leroy Bears. Man, how impressive is that?
It's amazing, especially to have one of the best stories in high school football this year. You lose your coach midseason to deployment. They didn't let it affect them. Actually, I feel like it just added a little motivation. They did it for their coach. Come back, repeat, win state. And I mean, to me, this was a pretty entertaining game to watch. There for a while, I was like, man, this Coosa team's good. It was our first time really being able to watch both of these teams all year. And it was definitely a great game all the way till the end.
And honestly, I think if you put Elba in the North, I think we see an Elba Leroy state title game.
Well, did we see? Was it the semifinal, Elba Leroy?
Yep. Elba won that game by 3 or 7 points.
You mean Leroy won that game?
Leroy. Oh my goodness.
Gosh.
That's a wrap, though. That's it. That's it. You want to talk about women's flag football?
What? Winona and Central Phoenix. Hey, shout out Central Phoenix. They took them both home. 2 blue maps coming back with the Red Devils.
Yeah, and it's the same trophy.
God, I should have played girls flag football in high school.
Man.
I think that's illegal in Alabama. I couldn't play girls flag football.
Cross flag football.
I'm just going to go to California and play girls flag football. I'm just kidding. No, man, we need to start like some intramurals at Jeff State. Get the Pioneer football team out here.
We should.
We'll come compete for that blue map next year. Ladies, the Pioneers flag football team's coming. We're going to be fundamentally sound.
The Lady Nears, baby.
The Lady Nears are coming.
We're going to play fundamental football.
We're going to run the ball, son.
Sneaky athletic. Fundamentals, got good hands. Anyways, that is a wrap on our 2023 coverage. We're gonna have off-season pods for you. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere. We knew this episode was gonna be a little bit shorter, just since we were recapping all the games, and our off-season content will start very soon. Probably by the time you're listening to this, it has already started. We've got our all BP teams that are coming out. We've got our awards that are coming out, and we've got some off-season graphic content for you, which is honestly my favorite part. But yeah, that's all we got for you. Thank you so much for listening all season, and we will see you guys next time.